Hey guys, I am Bianca. Thank you guys so much for joining us for today's craft break. We will be celebrating fall by using some of our favorite Mod Podge formulas and folk art paints to make napkin covered pumpkins that will start like this but end like this. So I will go ahead and I'll go through the supplies for this project that you will need. So the first thing are some really pretty pattern napkins. I have a few options here. If you guys are watching, while I go through the other supplies that you'll need, if you guys want to pick out which one we can use today, I definitely would not mind going with your suggestions. So we have a really pretty cheetah print pattern. We also have this really pretty fall floral pattern. And then we have another floral pattern that has a bit of a darker background. So if you guys would like to choose what pattern we'll be using today, I think that would be really fun. I will go ahead and I'll set these off to the side. Some of the other supplies you will need are Mod Podge. And I have two formulas here. I have the matte and the gloss. And I'll go through which formulas you can use at home in just a few minutes. I also have Treasure Gold here, and this is the majestic gold color. And then we also have some of our folk art paints, and these colors here are bright pink, thicket, and lipstick red. And then of course you'll need some paint brushes and some scissors. And that is pretty much it. So we will go ahead and we will jump into this project.
So Bianca, we have
Some votes?
We have 2 votes for cheetah.
Ooh, okay. That's the one I wanted to do anyway.
Okay.
So perfect.
That worked out.
Okay.
I like the floral patterns myself, but cheetah is the winner here today.
Okay, cool. All right. So we will go with the cheetah print. Thank you guys. All right. So the first step for this project is to, of course, grab a pumpkin. I would highly suggest using a foam pumpkin. That way you can continue to use this over and over for all of the years to come. Once you have your pumpkin, you want to base coat it. This step is not absolutely necessary, but I would highly suggest it. That way, when you do apply your napkins onto your pumpkin, you don't see much of the original color unless the napkins that you will be using kind of match the color of the pumpkin, you know, the original way that it came. So I went with licorice folk art paint. So I just went with black. I feel like black is a safe color whenever you're trying to cover something. So you won't really see this through the napkins that we are going to apply. And of course you want to let it dry fully before you get started. So that is the first step. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and set this off to the side. And let me know if you guys have any questions as we go through the project. This is really easy, really simple, and pretty quick actually. This is not hard at all. I think anyone can do this, whether you are an expert crafter. As a matter of fact, I feel like this is a project for people who are not great at crafting. You know, people who can't like carve pumpkins and draw. This is a great alternative.
That would be me, so maybe this is how I'll decorate my pumpkins this year.
This is the only way I will be decorating my pumpkins. I cannot draw or carve. All right, so once your pumpkin is base coated, you want to grab your napkins and you're going to open them up and you're going to turn them over and you're going to remove the ply from the back of your napkins. And the reason this step is important is because when we do go to attach these onto our pumpkin, we want the cheetah print design to be directly applied onto our surface and not just this part of the napkin. We don't want it to bubble up and look wrinkly. We want it to lay as flat as possible. So that is why you remove the ply from your napkins. So I'm gonna go ahead and toss that and we'll remove some more from our other napkin here. And then we are going to cut this into strips and I'll explain why in just a second. Also, when you are picking out your napkins, especially if you're going to do a pattern, I would highly suggest picking out a pattern that is not, how do I say this, that you don't have to worry about matching up, you know? Like when we combine these, it doesn't matter if any of the dots necessarily connect. It's gonna blend well together. So if you're gonna do like a plaid, you have to be very careful with how you cut your napkins and how you piece them together, because if they're not like perfectly aligned, the pattern won't look uniform. It'll look a little sloppy. So I would suggest using a pattern that's kind of messy, you know, something that you don't have to worry about matching up perfectly.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And you'll see what I mean in just a few minutes here. So I'm going to remove one more backing, and then we'll go ahead and cut these up into strips. Steven actually had a great idea. He said that you could also use tape to like easily peel the ply from the back of your napkins.
Yeah, if your back ply of your napkin is sticking a little bit more than others, you can take a piece of Scotch tape or painter's tape and peel or tape the back peel to your finger and then pull it apart pretty easily. We do that sometimes in the studio.
Yeah, that was a great suggestion. Especially if it's more than one ply, like 2-ply. Yeah. So we're just gonna cut these into strips, and let's actually double this up. Less work. And cut through it. Do we have anyone watching that has started decorating pumpkins already? Or carving pumpkins for Halloween?
Yeah, we'd like to know. We have a couple people on our YouTube stream that say this looks really fun and looks like a very cool project. So if you guys give it a try, let us know and share it with us on our social media, #PlaidCrafts.
All right, so we will start with these. We might have to cut a few more, but we'll go ahead and we'll start with these. So we'll set some of them off to the side. And then I'll talk about the Mod Podge formulas that we will be using. Now, you can use either one of these for this entire project. So if you only have gloss at home, you can definitely just use gloss. But if you also just have matte at home, you can use that as well. I'm going to use the matte to apply the napkins onto the pumpkin, but then towards the end, I'm going to add a top coat of the gloss just for some extra shine. But you do not need this one if you only have that one, vice versa. Either way, your project will come out great. So I'm gonna start with matte. So pour a little bit out here. I'm going to grab my brush, my Mod Podge brush, and I am going to begin painting my pumpkin or covering it. All right. And we'll go section by section. I would not suggest covering the entire pumpkin all at once because you don't want it to dry too quickly. So I would go piece by piece according to the size of your napkin strip. All right. So we're gonna grab napkin number 1 and we are going to lay it. All right. And we're just gonna smooth it out. And of course there will be some wrinkles. I think that is also another reason why choosing a really busy pattern works great with this project. The busier the pattern, the less imperfections you see. So when it's all said and done and when this pumpkin is fully covered, I don't even think those few wrinkles that are there will even matter.
Bianca, we have a question for you. Platinum Lifestyle Coach asks, does Bianca have her own YouTube channel? Do you want to?
I do.
Do you want to plug your channel?
Yeah. So So if you go on YouTube and you type in Bianca Octavia, I should pop up. And you can also find me on Instagram at I am Bianca Octavia. And if you need me to spell that, I can.
I can put it in the chat
Okay.
for you.
So we have our first strip laid. We're gonna go ahead and continue to cover it. So I have the second piece here, and we are going to lay it. So when you base coat your pumpkin, I would suggest using a color that is similar to the background of the napkin that you'll be using. I also would not suggest using a white napkin or a napkin that has a pattern but a white background, because you don't really want the Mod Podge to show through. So the darker the napkin or the more tint it has, the better. All right. So that is number 2. We'll add a little bit more Mod Podge over here to the side of this napkin. And then once we fully cover this, I'm going to use the Treasure Gold to paint the stem. But I do have some other fun suggestions that you could try out at home that still do involve Mod Podge. I think a really cool way to cover the stem, if you don't want to use paint, would be to cover it with Mod Podge and then to cover it with glitter, if you want to go for more of a glam look. All right, so we'll just use our hands to lay this. And where some of the wrinkles are, I'm just using my finger to create nice and neat creases. All right. And we're just going to continue to keep going around. And I do have some finished examples over here to the left side of me. I think we started by showing you the dark blue one, but I do have another smaller pumpkin with a floral pattern. And then I have the finished example with the cheetah print on it too. So I can show you guys those if you want to see those real quick. All right, let's put a little bit on top of here. And then I'm coming here towards the top to kind of lay down around the top edges of our pumpkin, around the stem. Get that nice and flat. I'm gonna grab our next strip and we're gonna lay that one as well. And if you have to overlap your napkins, that's totally fine. You can kind of see what I meant by making sure you pick the right type of pattern, because even though I just laid this over top of the other napkin, you can't even really tell that it's not, not necessarily meeting at the perfect spots. It blends well together. All right. So we're just going around. So this is super easy, guys. Like I said, this is so easy. I don't really think you have to have any skill level of crafting. I think if this was the first thing you ever made, you'd still be successful.
So we have a couple of questions.
Okay.
We had a question from Betty.
Okay.
What do you use to clean your brush that you're using? We have a product in our folk art line called Brush Plus, which is like a solution that will get paint and Mod Podge and any other crafting materials out of your bristles. So we use that a lot in the studio for cleaning our brushes out. And then we have another question on our YouTube stream from Nancy. Would it be easier if you cut your strips thinner?
You can definitely cut your strips thinner. I don't think it necessarily be easier or harder. I think it just goes back to what pattern you're using. You know, if you want your look, the look of your napkins to turn out a certain way, it may be necessary for you to cut your napkins thinner. But I don't think it'd be easier or harder. I think it would be a preference.
I think you've definitely inspired somebody. They said, I'm going to make some pumpkins with that cheetah print napkin for, I can't read this word. I think they meant to say my sister. It may have been a typo. Or maybe I'm just not reading it right. Thank you for the inspiration, Queen, is what they said.
Oh, thank you. Thank you guys for joining and watching. All right, so we will look over it so far. It's looking good so far. I think 2 to 3 more strips should do it. So let's come back over to this side. Let's try to get this side laid down. So add a little more Mod Podge under here. If you're just getting in and you didn't catch what Mod Podge formula I am using matte. But if you have gloss at home, you can use that as well. And too, guys, if you don't have napkins but you have fabric, you can use that as well. And with that, I would probably suggest using our fabric formula. Same premise, you would cut your fabric into strips and try to go along the shape of your pumpkin. Not too much different from what we're doing right now. All right, go ahead and flip this over this way. So see how quick this was? This is a super easy project, super quick. I think this would be great for kids. Even like outside of Halloween. Well, these are fall pumpkins, but you could definitely do this for Halloween. But once you get closer to Thanksgiving for like place settings, I think this would be a really cute party favorite to give out to your guests. If you were to create them and maybe add like a name tag around them and put them in their setting at the dinner table and they could take them home with them, I think that'd be a really cute craft. Let's move this back up. And again, I am just using my finger to lay this. I'm kind of like using my thumb to lay down in between the ridges. Go back over this with a little bit more just to try to get it flatter. All right. So if you ever had like any leftover napkins that people didn't use, this is a reason to hang on to them. All right. So we are really close to the end here. we have 2 more strips here, and I think that should do it. We would love to hear where you guys are watching from. Do we have anyone that is not here in Georgia with us?
Let us know.
I have over here to the side of me once we finish, just so you can get some inspiration when it comes to combining some patterns together. All right, so we'll add on our last strip. When you totally cover your pumpkin, if you do see some areas that you feel like could use some extra coverage, you can definitely go over it with another strip of napkin. That is totally fine. Again, just remember to move the ply from the back of the napkin.
Yeah, Bianca, we have viewers from all over the place. We have them in Texas, Delaware, Indiana, Myrtle Beach,
Ooh, Myrtle
Northern
Beach.
and Southern California, Arkansas, Alaska.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm very jealous about California. Alaska too, I think. I think I'm jealous of Alaska too. That's a place I really want to go to.
Yeah, me too.
All right. So our pumpkin is totally covered. And I would say that you probably let it dry for about 30 minutes, maybe an hour. Mod Podge dries pretty fast, but we do have quite a bit on here. So maybe up to an hour, maybe a little bit less. I do see some spots on here that I would want to go back over, maybe with a second strip of napkin, but I would usually do that once it is totally dry. So for now, we will just let this dry. I'll show you guys what it looks like. So it looks a little wonky right now, but I do have a finished example that I can show you guys. But before I do that, I want to talk about painting the stem. So if you didn't catch it earlier, I used Treasure Gold, and this is the Majestic Gold color. I think this is really pretty for a nice glam look, but I think any of the Treasure Gold colors would be really nice for this project.
Yeah, I think this goes really well with the cheetah print.
Yeah. Yeah, so we'll go ahead and we'll pour a little bit of that out just so you guys can have an idea of what the Majestic Gold looks like. So we'll pour just a little bit out here. I think in the wintertime, if you wanted to, maybe instead of making pumpkins, you wanted to do these on some like large ornaments. I think this technique would be really cool with silver for like a winter wonderland theme. I think that'd be really nice. So I'm gonna go ahead and paint our stem here. And for this part, depending on what you base coated your pumpkin with, you may need to do 2 coats. And this dries pretty fast, just like the Mod Podge, probably even faster. You can always use a blow dryer to dry your project if you are in a time crunch. So this is what the majestic gold looks like. This-
We had a question. Is the gold paint from Folk Art 2? Yes. Treasure Gold is a part of our Folk Art line, and I think there are just under a dozen, maybe
Oh,
like
wow.
8. I'm not sure exactly, but there are a lot of colors to pick from. They all have this super like opaque but metallic look to them, and they're not like other metallic paints that are like kind of smelly when you use them, you
Oh,
know?
wow.
I don't know if you've ever used any like that, but a lot of them are. Treasure Gold is not. So this is a really, really good metallic paint. It's our favorite.
Yeah, I really love treasure gold.
I think some of the varieties that we have are like this kind of green color. There's a purple, blue, all metallic,
Yep.
all super shiny. We can't say enough good things about it.
All right, so this is a first coat. I would definitely add a second coat. I don't know if you guys can kind of see that, but you can kind of see the black color through it. But once this dries totally, I would go back and add a second coat. But I do have a finished example that I can show you guys. But before I take this out of the frame here, I did just want to say again, if you didn't catch it earlier, when choosing your pattern, I would highly suggest using a busy pattern so that when you do go to match up your strips, it does not matter or it doesn't look bad if your pattern doesn't necessarily match up with the previous napkin that you placed on your pumpkin. So with this pattern, the cheetah pattern, I think cheetah print is like really busy and it doesn't really, you know, make sense or connect. So I think this was a great choice to use.
And I think you could kind of pull that off with florals too, for the most part.
Yep, and I'll show you some of the other napkins that I pulled out just for some inspiration. So these are another pattern example that I think would look really great. And you don't have to necessarily worry about matching it up because it's so busy. So when you do this project at home, just be conscious of that. Like a pattern like plaid, I don't think that would be the best for this project. You may be able to get it done. It might take a lot of patience and a little bit more time than we had here today, but I think going with a busy pattern like the ones that we use today in these examples would be great. So we will go ahead and we will pull out our finished pumpkins. So this is our cheetah print. This is what it looks like when it is totally dried. I love it. And then this is the gold color that we use, the treasure gold. And then some other examples we have this really pretty floral print. So you can't tell where one napkin begins and the other one ends.
Right.
And that is this one that I pulled out just a second ago. As a matter of fact, I think it looks like this was bought out of the store like this, in my opinion. That looks great. And then we have this tiny one down here with another really pretty floral pattern. I can never remember the name of those vases, but they're really expensive with like the blue floral print
I know
on
what you're
them.
talking about.
I can never remember the name of those.
I don't know the name of them
But
either.
that is what this print reminded me of. So when I saw this, I was like, ooh, this looks expensive. So this is the pattern set that I chose to go with. I think they complement each other
That's
well.
what I was just going to say. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
those 3 patterns work really well together.
Yeah, I love how the cheetah print doesn't make sense, but it does make sense.
Right.
Like it offsets the floral. So this is the set that I decided to go with. Like Steven said earlier, we would love to see what you guys come up with at home. Here, I'll put these together facing forward from the front so you can see them all together. We would love to see the ideas and projects that you come up with at home. I would love to see what type of napkin patterns you choose at home on your own. Even if you don't choose to cover pumpkins, we would love to see what you choose to use your Mod Podge and your napkins for. So thank you guys so much for joining us today. If you have any other questions before we get out of here, I definitely do not mind answering them. Actually, there is one thing I forgot to mention. If you do want to add gloss or like a shiny coat once your project is done, you can definitely use Mod Podge gloss. It is not necessary, but if you do want to add some shine, you can add that at the end of your project. But like I said, it is not necessary. This is a preference.
Awesome.
Yeah. But this is our set. Again, we would love to see what you guys come up with at home. Make sure that you use hashtag plaid crafts so that we can see them. And we will see you guys next time if we don't have any questions.
No, I think we just have lots of fans of this project, lots of fans of Mod Podge, lots of people saying they're going to share with us what they're going to make this fall. We are excited to see it. So thank you guys for joining us.
Thank you guys.